Hello BookTube, welcome back to my library. It's Tim at Renerdified Reads, and today I thought I'd go over a few authors that are just automatic buyers for me and kind of why they're automatic buyers and what I've already read by them. The first automatic buy author for me on this list is Adrian Tchaikovsky. Discovered him about a year, maybe 2 years ago, and the book that I discovered him through was Children of Time, and then followed up by its sequel, Children of Ruin. I think book 3 is coming out for the series relatively soon. It's, having read more by him, the series isn't my favorite by him, but it's a lot of other people's. It's a very good starting point. It's, I think, what put him on the map. It's still a really good series. They're both still 4-star reads for me, but again, not my favorite by him. Next series by Adrian Tchaikovsky that I read was The Final Architect. That's Shards of Earth, book 1. And Eyes of the Void, book 2. This series, I think, is what made me want to buy more Adrian Tchaikovsky books. I was interested after Children of Time and Children of Ruin, but wasn't as gung-ho about it. And this series is really what I think made me want to read the rest of his back catalog and everything that he releases coming up and moving forward. The most recent book I read by Adrian Tchaikovsky was the start Sci-Fi September. That was Cage of Souls. This is really good. I think my Sci-Fi September TBR video mentioned that I got randomly sent a signed copy. Maybe that hyped it up a bit more. Also, the cover is gorgeous. It's probably my second favorite cover on my shelves. Don't worry, number 1's coming up eventually in this video. Tune in. And yeah, it's a really good read. I think this is one of his lesser known hits, if that oxymoron makes any sense. It's still really good. He really drives home a lot of good characters, a lot of good settings, and it makes me want to read even more. The next automatic buy author for me is Pierce Brown. For what he's most known for, it's what he's currently writing. Is the Red Rising series. Book 1 being Red Rising. Book 2 is Golden Sun. My copy of Golden Sun sent out to my sister-in-law, so I don't have a copy to hold up. Book 3, Morning Star. Book 4, Iron Gold. Book 5, Dark Age. The series is really good. I've heard book 1 compared to The Hunger Games a lot as The Hunger Games in space. I really like that analogy. It's a good comparison. It's really like The Hunger Games on Mars. It's a better comparison. And then book 2's got the most twists I've ever seen in the book, and the twistiest of all twists, in my opinion. At the end, it floored me. Book 2 is still, I think, my favorite book of all time. If not, it's up there. It's definitely my favorite book 2 of all time. And Morning Star is a great conclusion to the original trilogy, and it's perfect. You can stop there if you don't want to keep going. Books 4 and 5 just continuously getting darker and darker. You get to Dark Age, which I read when it just got released in 2019. I still remember it to this day, and the characters that come back from the original series, and the villains that are there, and the villains that come back, the heroes that come back, and the twists and the combat. And it's Pierce Brown has become an instant buy. Book 6 is coming out early next year. Book 7 not too far after that, and that's going to hopefully wrap this series up. And I am not ready for this series to end. I don't know what I'm going to do once this series ends, except buy more Pierce Brown books. Next author I have on this list is Christopher Roucchio. His Sun Eater series, I've heard a lot of comparisons to Red Rising. Overall, the series is a lot better than Red Rising. I think the lows in the series, the dud moments, are a lot less of dud moments than in Red Rising. Red Rising's still really good, but Christopher Roucchio, there has not been a miss in this series. Every book in this series has been 5 stars. It starts with Empire of Silence, and you get introduced to Hadrian Marlowe and his actions and how he came to be involved with the Cielson, and it gets good and good and better and better. And you move on to Howling, and then you move on to book 2, Howling Dark, which this might be the best in the series, and it's phenomenal. It is the pacing's breakneck, and these are thick books, and it's breakneck. There's non-stop action, there's non-stop movement, there's non-stop character development, and you get to grow with the characters, you get to grow with the plot, you get to go through this journey and root for these characters. You know, Hadrian Marlowe's not a good guy. You root for him. Somehow, Mr. Roucchio has you rooting for Hadrian Marlowe. You get to book 3, Demon in White, and you lose words. And what these characters go through, and as you can tell, I'm trying to be as vague as possible because a lot of these books are series, and I don't want to spoil anything. I want you guys to go out and read these books for yourselves. And you get to this series, in the Sun Eater series, you get to book 4, Kingdoms and Death, and this book lives up to this title. It is a Kingdom of Death in this book, and it was surprising. I read this when it came out earlier this year, and I had to wait because I got stuck ordering the UK versions, as you guys just saw, and the American covers are great. Never found them in hardcover, only mass market paperback. I ordered book 1 in paperback, the UK version, and now I'm waiting a month after they come out to get the UK version to match my set. The penultimate author on this list is Neil Gaiman, and I discovered Neil Gaiman not with this copy of the book, but with this book, Neverwhere. I really should probably go back and reread this book. It's one of my favorite books of all time. It's definitely in my top 7, if not top 5 books of all time. I don't know what happened to my original copy of Neverwhere. I read this years and years ago, and sometime in my early 20s, and loved it. It's, I guess, best described as portal fantasy, but not fantasy in the traditional fantasy sense. And this cover with Dor on the cover is phenomenal. And you go into the London Underground, which I believe that's what it's called, is phenomenal. And this book, I want to go back and reread this copy with the illustrations in here. They're so good. These illustrations are just wonderful. And I saw even like the borders on some of these pages. There's beautiful art. I've also read Good Omens, the book that he did with Terry Pratchett. And Terry Pratchett British humor, I tend to not laugh at as much as Douglas Adams and Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, but I still think it's, he's a fantastic author. Neil Gaiman's a fantastic author. Love the good and evil aspect of this book, and now I need to go and watch the TV series for this book, because I've also heard that's really good. The Ocean at the End of the Lane, this book is really good. This book's a very supernatural feeling, like Neverwhere. You follow this man who goes back to a house that he used to live at or go to as a kid, and go to a lake or a pond towards down the street at the end of the lane, and this girl that he would talk to and adventure with, and it's so good. It's very supernatural feeling, and you go through the entire book and you don't know the main character's name. It's very, very unique, very fun, and it's a quick read. It's very thin. It took me maybe took me maybe 2 days of different hour-and-a-half reading sessions. The only series that are from these last two authors is American Gods and Anansi Boys. I don't even know if you could call this a series, maybe just a book and a sequel, technically a duology. This is really good. I loved American Gods. Anansi Boys was a nice follow-up, but I definitely liked American Gods even more. It's the adventure you go on. It's so fun, so unique. The most recent book I read by Neil Gaiman is The Graveyard Book, and I thought this was a really fun Jungle Book retelling of, you follow a kid whose parents pass away and he grows up in a graveyard, and it's very supernatural. It's very cool. It's a very fun read. If you read the audiobook or listen to the audiobook of this, it is phenomenal. I like to full immersion read, and having the full cast audiobook as I was reading along with the book, with the physical book, just added to it, and it's such a fun read. Last author I have on this list is probably my favorite author now of all these that I've listed, and probably overall, just in general. I discovered him in 2016 through his book Dark Matter. Of course, now you know I'm talking about Mr. Blake Crouch, and the journey that he has brought me on in the 3 books that I've read by him have just been wonderful, scientifically magical, and unbelievable. Dark Matter is the first book I read by him. It's my favorite book of all time. If it's not, it's second behind Golden Sun by Pierce Brown. This book is phenomenal. The multiverse journey that you go on, and you really feel for Jason wanting to get the main character, wanting to get back home and going through this multiverse. The second book I read by Blake Crouch was the next one he released after Dark Matter, and that was Recursion. And this one is very similar to Dark Matter. It gets compared to a lot. If you've heard of anything about Blake Crouch and his books, a lot of people will say that if you like Dark Matter, you won't like Recursion as much. If you like Recursion, you won't like Dark Matter as much. I think Recursion's a phenomenal read. It was probably a 4.5 star read when I first read it, and then I reread it earlier this year, and it's a 5-star read. It deals with memories, and false memory syndrome is the big plot device in this book, and it's so good. It's such another Blake Crouch journey that you go on with Barry, and wanting to root for him and make sure he gets back and is okay. And it's another thriller without even, I think, being a thriller, and it's just so fun. I mentioned earlier that Cage of Souls by Adrian Tchaikovsky is one of my favorite book covers that I have on my shelf. That other book that I mentioned earlier is none other than Upgrade by Mr. Blake Crouch. This book came out earlier this year in July. It was an automatic pre-order for me. I went and was like, I'm going to go out and I am going to get me a signed copy. And Mr. Crouch was wonderful enough to sign a copy. And this book, phenomenal, deals with gene splicing, and you follow character Logan Ramsey as he gets his genes edited. It's not spoiling anything that happens in the first couple of chapters. This book is a wild journey, and honestly, I think this is probably my second favorite Blake Crouch that I've read, just behind Dark Matter. It's such a fun read, and its cover is gorgeous. I love the color blue, and it just looks phenomenal. It pops on the shelf if you front face it, and it's wonderful. So those are some of the authors that I consider must-buys for me. They come out with a new book, I'm going to try and go out and get it day of, if not pre-order it. And yeah, hopefully this video helps you guys discover some new authors, and I hope you guys enjoy and continue reading.